For the past couple of years, Alex Palou has been the man at the helm in IndyCar, winning the championship in 4 of the last 5 years, and finally adding a win at the Indy 500 last year to his resume. He is statistically the most dominant force we've seen in the sport in decades, but unlike your average racing superstar, he isn't flamboyant, he isn't aggressive, and he doesn't have an ounce of outward arrogance. He just gets out on track and wins. But what makes the quiet killer of IndyCar so hard to beat? On paper, you can look at the stats of how Palou has dominated and think a certain way. For example, he's held first in the standings in IndyCar for 623 days, or 89 weeks, with that streak coming to an end a couple weeks ago in Phoenix. Meaning prior to this year, the last time Palou didn't hold the championship lead, Théo Pourchaire was driving for McLaren. Now, like I said, when you look at that stat alone, you feel like Palou was just winning everything. And compare it to 2023, where in F1, Max Verstappen whitewashed the whole field. But fundamentally, Palou's dominant reign was actually very calculated. It's no question that Palou is simply one of the most complete drivers on the grid, but I'm here to dig deeper than that. His overall unstoppable nature is built on an emphasis on consistency. Now, when you crunch the numbers, Palou is finishing near the top in almost every race he competes in. As a matter of fact, since the start of 2023, Palou has only finished outside the top 10 11 times across 56 races. And that does show crazy consistency, but that isn't my main point here. Obviously, it's hard to beat a guy when he's winning everything, but it's even harder to beat him when he doesn't have any bad results. With the exception of actual on-track crashes where Palou's taken out of the race, he rarely finishes outside the top 10. Take the 2023 Indy 500 for example, where Alex Palou and Rinus VeeKay made contact in the pits when they were two of the leading drivers of the race around lap 95, and this caused Palou to drop deep into the field because he had to change his front wing. Usually, this would be a pretty race-ending event for most drivers, and they'd try to claw back a result and gather a few points as damage control. But Palou made his way up back to 4th, which is a good result regardless of starting position. Now, if this was an isolated moment, it's not really worth pointing out, but it's actually pretty normal for Palou to maximize points regardless of anything going wrong, whether it's in his control or not. Take a look at Nashville in 2024, where in the final race of the season, Alex Palou held a 33-point lead over Will Power, but started the race 24th after a combination of a poor qualifying and a 9-place grid penalty. Regardless of the circumstances, Palou climbed the ladder to finish 11th and secure his 3rd championship, although it didn't really end up mattering because Will Power went down a few laps because of a seatbelt issue. Now, 11th isn't quite the same as a 4th, but it's once again an incredible result given the circumstances. And with this sort of recovery ability, it makes it really tough for anyone to close the gap to Palou. When Palou is racking up a ton of points with race wins, it's no question that there are going to be off weeks from time to time, when issues do happen, but when Alex Palou is able to take those weeks and flip them into solid results, it leaves no real chance for other drivers to catch up in the standings. Take Scott McLaughlin for example, who in his time in IndyCar has shown some serious talents, and has been very competitive when given the car to do so. In 2024, where both McLaughlin and Penske were very competitive and finished 3rd in the standings, it's a good example. McLaughlin won 3 races and had the most poles in the season, and he could have been right next to Palou in the standings if the Penske cars didn't get disqualified in St. Pete. McLaughlin had a very quick season, but races like Monterey where McLaughlin started 7th and had an incident in the race and dropped to 21st were the difference maker. Now, this is by no means a knock on Scott McLaughlin, and my main point on that result is that it's human. Dropping from 7th to 21st is completely understandable given the circumstances, even for one of the best drivers in the series. What makes Palou scarier here though is that he effectively doesn't have that human error factor to him, and as long as his car is still running, he still performs. He effectively has raised the floor of what a bad weekend looks like, making it nearly impossible to bridge the gap in points to him. As well as that, he tends to shine in the places where you least expect it. When you combine recovery drives with specific things that Palou does to make up time, not necessarily shown on the broadcast, it shows that there really are levels to this. I'm specifically talking about the whole pit sequence and how Palou seemingly never falls behind there, and this is primarily done by incredible in and out laps. On the in-lap, you're pretty much told to go all out because you're coming into the pits for new tires and a top up on fuel. So it's as close to the limit as you can get without stepping over that line. And Palou's able to find that with such good margins. Combining this with the ability to masterfully warm up tires on a lap means that even if a slow stop happens in the pit box, it doesn't make nearly as much of a dent in the times as it would for others. Now with that, you can assume Palou's ability to manage tires and fuel are also off the charts. Take a look at the opener last month in St. Pete, where Palou won the race, but he was behind Scott McLaughlin the entire first stint. Palou was able to pass, not on track, but through one of his infamous overcuts, which you guessed it, comes from his ability to manage. Once he got past and was in the clean air, he took off and finished 12 seconds ahead. But the amount of flexibility offered because of Palou's skill allows him to go for such things. Combining all these things really does add up, and it allows Alex Palou to really make up a lot of time that you wouldn't notice by simply checking the timing sheets. But despite all that time that Palou is able to make up, there is one thing that you can compare Palou with to other dominant motorsport runs, is that you have to attribute the machine behind the man. The number 10 team and car at Chip Ganassi Racing is a well-oiled machine that further allows Palou to extract everything out of the car and have no tracks that are seen as a weak point. Take a look to Kyle Kirkwood at Andretti. They're able to contest and even outdo Palou at street courses, but they've struggled in the past to keep the same level of consistency at ovals and road courses, where they do get good results sometimes, but not every time. Or look at Penske. They're quite the opposite, where they've been really dominant on ovals in times, but they have some issues on street circuits. The point here is that oftentimes other teams can outshine Ganassi at specific courses, but they lack the ability to always be in the conversation at every single event. This once again plays into the idea that it's hard to keep up with a guy with such a high floor in terms of results every week. Another reason for that is Palou's tight connection with his strategist Barry Wanzer, who helps him quite a lot. Take a look at Road America last year, where most of the race win can be accredited to Wanzer from the pit box. Palou admitted he didn't agree with the strategy call Barry Wanzer made to go on an offset strategy, but it ended up working out as Palou ended up in the lead with 3 laps to go. That was a victory not only decided by both of their abilities, but their trust in one another to put 100% into a decision that they didn't exactly agree on, which propelled them to the win. The addition of Wanzer in Palou's ear makes a second line of defense in the case of a misjudgment by Palou. The reason Alex Palou is unbeatable actually doesn't all fall into everything he does right, but more into what others don't. Like I mentioned, on a given weekend, he is beatable, and it's actually very feasible to be better than him on one front. The problem is that no one can really match him everywhere, and over the course of a full season, those individual weaknesses add up to a gap that never seems to close. Like I mentioned with Kyle Kirkwood, he has a real advantage on street courses, where he thrives. But when you look at recent years, he's lost a lot of points to Palou elsewhere. Same with Christian Lundgaard, who really is emerging now at McLaren, especially on road courses, but he too seems to not be on the same level as Palou on ovals. Many people are now also discussing David Malukas as a threat, now that he's at Penske, but where he excels on ovals, he just achieved his first top 5 at a road course a few weeks ago at Barber, so he still does need some time. When it comes to well-rounded drivers, Patou O'Ward is always in the discussion too, but he also struggles to have that same damage control that Palou has, and typically will have a few damaging weekends towards his points tally despite incredible results elsewhere. The point here is none of these drivers are bad at all, they're actually some of the best in the world, but they all have a hole that can be exploited by Alex Palou's calculated approach. But this year does look like the first opening that others have had in some time. After Barber, I'm pretty convinced that Lundgaard could bring the fight to Palou if he could bring some form on the ovals. With Kirkwood being the points leader too, it would be wrong for me to not mention him. So far, Kirkwood has top 5'd every event so far, and has gotten a win on the streets of Arlington. Also, as we head to his best track at Long Beach. So if he can find consistency this year, he really does have a good shot. Patou O'Ward is also always a good challenger, but he needs to find that spark to get going this year. The Penskes are also always a wild card, and even though they did have a bit of a weak year last season, all 3 drivers seem to be near the top this year. The truth is, this year gives a chance for others to take the crown for IndyCar in 2026. But do you see it happening? Can anyone really crack the Palou code, or is it just another year with him on the top?